Welcome back to this episode of Building Better Business. I'm incredibly excited to bring you guys our guest today. Her name is Kelly Nagel. She is the co-host and I should say co-YouTube host as well of the EntrepreNAGEL podcast, of the EntrepreNAGEL show. It's amazing. I was just telling Kelly off air that I was just spending the last few days listening to some of their podcast episodes and their YouTube videos, which the fact that there's only 300 and some subscribers is just a travesty. You guys should have tens of subscribers by now. Like, one, you guys are so funny, and two, the information you guys are putting out there is amazing. So Kelly, we're going to get into your bio in just a sec, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really pumped. I'd made a post on Instagram, I think, I don't know, a week or two, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, saying, hey, I'd love to interview some badass women business owners out there. And sure enough, Kelly got tagged like within, I don't know, an hour of that. And I was like, you kind of do what you do. I stalked her on Instagram and I was like, whoa, what is this? 25K in debt to like $1 million in revenue. And then, a Turo business. And I'm sure we'll dive into it, but like, I'd been kind of doing my own research on like Turo maybe 6 to 7 months ago when I was buying a new car and was like, oh, I haven't learned about Turo. Yeah. So I'm super pumped. I got a ton of questions, but before we dive into that, Kelly, do you mind giving us just a quick, or it doesn't have to be quick, it could be as long as you want, a little background on, were you always an entrepreneur? And then how did you get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up in Florida and now we're in Alaska. So big change there. But I grew up in Florida with my parents running several businesses growing up. And I loved watching that. That was a great experience. And then my parents still do that to this day. But they were a really big inspiration for me in that regard. Yeah. And that always just like put that in the back of my head, like, oh, maybe owning a business is not too bad. Not perfect or easy, but not like it's a great option. Yeah. You don't always have to be in a 9 to 5, which is fine too to do. But anyways, so I went to college and I studied electrical engineering and I loved it. I really did enjoy it. And then I met my husband in school and then he was in ROTC program. So he got sent up here to Alaska. We moved up here after we got married and it was great. We loved it here. I started my first job as an engineer here. And I was working there for about a year and I was like, I do not like this. This is not fun to me. The engineering aspect loved. The like working 9 to 5, it was a really tough project on top of that. And it was just like, we never saw each other. We were always so tired and we just like zone out and sit at the TV and fall asleep on the couch because we were just so exhausted, both of us working long hours. And so I was like, I can't do this. I ended up getting let go because they were cutting down the budget on the project. Yeah. And it actually was the best thing for me. I was like, well, maybe I'll go like find another job. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. I never see you. Like, I don't want to like be away from like, it was just a bad taste in my mouth for like what that could be. Now, I'm sure if I had gone that direction, it could have been great. But I really have always wanted, I guess, going back to like growing up in that regard of owning businesses, I was like, I want to do that. And so we started Travel Last Frontier. And I was running, like setting up itineraries for people to come visit Alaska. So we're like, we love Alaska, like come up here and experience it like we have. And so ever since that, we started that in 2018 and then 2020 happened. But my son was born at the end of January of 2020. And then with everything going on, we originally, my husband was supposed to get out of the Army at like the end of 2020. We were like, we're going to go full force into Travel Last Frontier. That would be full time. And he was hoping to like, we were going to, Airbnb arbitrage places. And we were already starting to look at places like in the spring, right before like COVID stuff actually started happening. And we were like, whoa, oh no. And then like everything started shutting down, right? Nobody's traveling, anything. That's huge industry in Alaska. It's like major margins there, especially in the summer. And when that doesn't go on, like it's a very big deal. Damn. And so we were like, we had to do a 180 pivot. We were like, what are we going to do? And because he was still getting out. We were like, we want to run a business, but like, what do we do? And he was running eBay and Amazon on the side. Mm-hmm. And he was still hoping to do so just like as a part-time thing. But he was like, okay, we'll ramp this up. And so he sold a ton of books. He started selling a bunch of books on Amazon. that year. And so then that became our full-time income starting at the end of 2020 into 2021.
Wow.
And it was a huge transition. It was a big deal. And then he started doing a lot of like online arbitrage. And I mean, I'm there, mind you, on the side, but he does a lot of the Amazon stuff.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to come back to the Travel Last Frontier business. And we actually talked about shutting it down in 2021 because we were like, if this happens still, like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, we're not going to just sit here and like twiddle our thumbs and wait. And it's a hard balance, right? Like, you don't want to encourage people to travel during something like that. But then at the same time, you're like, I would love you to come visit Alaska.
Right.
But, so we kept it in 2021. They opened it back up our governor opened up travel in May. There was a big thing with like flying in. It was like hard. And so when they flew back in, we were like, oh, and we were hearing about Turo. We'd used Turo a couple years before when we went to Hawaii and like rented ourselves. And it was a decent experience. And my husband had looked into it. He was like, maybe we should get into Turo. And Turo here is a very big deal. Like, it does super well in the summers. And a lot of people start selling using their Turo, like their personal cars on Turo in the summer. For like their winter car is their big SUV 4x4. They put it on Turo in the summer, and then they might drive their sports car, motorcycle, or whatever in the winter or in the summer. While that's on Turo, their winter car is on Turo in the summer. So that's a pretty cool thing we were seeing. We're like, wow, like people and there was like a shortage. It was a big deal in 2021 with like Hertz downsizing all their cars, all of that. And that was a very big deal in Alaska because it was really hard to get cars up here. And so they were sold out. Like, none of the big national brands had any cars in Anchorage. And so we were like, okay, this is like definitely a need. And so it actually took us until August to get a car up, but we eventually got a car up in August of 2021. And then ever since then, now we have 6 cars and we've been loving it. We don't want to turn back. We don't want to go to a 9 to 5 again.
It's so exciting. Oh my gosh. I've got so many questions about a couple of things before I'm really excited to dive into the Turo details, but I got to ask, first off, like, I think it's so cool that you grew up in a family of business owners where, I think some people are, but it didn't sound like you were like born to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't necessarily the, like, you were like gung ho, I'm going to go do, it was, electrical engineering, like far from run your own business kind of thing. And like,
for sure.
And it's so cool. I look at like, our story is similar. My business partner and I, like, kind of circumstantial, like, created an opportunity. And so I think that's just really cool. I'd love to know what kind of business do they run? Like, was it anything similar? Is it a separate type of business?
Yeah. So at the time, my parents were doing, like, they did a lot of medical stuff. They were selling like gloves, and then they had some, like, I forget what they're called. I'm going to totally botch that, but it's like, you screw in certain plates to like your wrist, or broken bones when you get like, so they were selling like stuff like that, like certain like surgical healing bones sort of thing, like plates to like screw in there. And then a couple other things. And then he pivoted, and then now they're doing commercial real estate. So he's a broker. He's a commercial real estate broker. And he and my sister work together. I mean, and my mom too, but it's them. So it's a family business down there.
That's so cool. The next question I had was, when you start travel, the travel Alaska side of stuff, the business person in me goes, how did you get your first clients? Was it friends and family that wanted to come visit Alaska and you would create plans for them? How did you find customers beyond, or what was the plan for getting customers? Super curious, because I'm sure Alaska's got a pretty established tourist industry at this point.
Yes, they do. They certainly do. It's a big moneymaker. It's like, I think the top 3, it's like one of the top 3 like moneymaker in the state, besides oil and gas. And then I think, I can't remember the other one, but it might be fishing and stuff like that. But we set up a website, and I set up like a Facebook page, and I just like sent it out to my friends and family. And then it was just word of mouth. It was like friends or friends of family and stuff that were going to come up. And we had planned, sadly, that there were several people already interested, and like, or random people, like strangers we hadn't even known. They found us somehow. And we were setting up stuff for 2020, but this kind of fell through. Not a big deal, but that's where it started. And so now we're trying to pick that side back up again, recovering from that. And so
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah.
focusing really hard on Turo, but I think we really want to work on
Cool.
bringing up the itinerary side of things too.
Yeah.
But mostly it was word of mouth for a long time.
Okay. Okay. Is the plan, just like my business brain, super curious, is the plan on that side to focus like digital heavy of like potentially
Yes.
creating content and getting, okay, cool.
Yep. Yep. So we have a YouTube page. I think it's Travel Lost Frontier. Everything's Travel Lost Frontier for that. And we have a YouTube page and Instagram, and it's trying to learn all that, trying to understand like, okay, who our target market is, but then realizing maybe they're not on Instagram, or maybe we're not hitting them on YouTube in the right way for titles and different things like that. And so we've really been trying to like work on that and being consistent about it. I think that's been our struggle right now, is like not posting consistently.
Yeah.
So
Which is so tough. Like it's, and I'm right there with you. Like we obviously have our business that's going well, but we're, you know, I'm trying to dive into like, hey, we have all this content, and how do we turn it into a blog or YouTube side of stuff? It's its own beast of just like, it's not as simple as just like post and all of a sudden magic happens, you know, there's so much to it, which is wild, but which is awesome. So also really cool to have a partner who's very entrepreneurial, it sounds like too.
Yes.
Was
he was against it for a little while, but eventually came around. Yeah.
Okay. Were you the spark? Like, was it the travel Alaska idea the thing that helped spark him, do you think? Or was it kind of, curious how he eventually came around.
Yes. I noticed in him that that he had an entrepreneur in him. Probably early on in our marriage, but when we came up and he was like here, he started dabbling still. Like he started like as a teenager selling stuff on eBay. I think what was his first thing he sold on eBay? It was some sort of like water gun or airsoft gun or something that he found at Goodwill. He used it. It was super cool, but it was like an actual like retro one that was like big deal. And he sold it for like $100 something. It was like big deal at the time, especially for like at 14. Yeah. He's like, oh, now this is a thing. And then in college, I think he sold his first textbook, like his own textbook, just happenstance. Like he like was on the Amazon listing, looking at it. Maybe, I don't know why, he was just looking at prices, maybe to sell it on eBay. And then he was like, oh, there was like a little like sell my book to link. And so he clicked it and he set it up and he sold it. And he was like, oh, maybe I like this. And so I knew that about him when we came in like early on in our marriage. And I was like, he's got an entrepreneur in him. And so he wanted to sell some more stuff on Amazon and eBay. And so we set aside like $200 that month. And I mean, I think he spent it over a couple of months or something, but he just like would go to thrift stores, find stuff anywhere at the auction houses near in our town. And he started just selling more and more and more. And then it started becoming like an actual, like it could be a source of income. He was like, that's a lot of money. I didn't even think about it. And this was all part-time, mind you, that he was full-time Army, long hours, busy. And he was doing this on the side. And he was like, okay, this could work. It was great.
Yeah. I love the journey of like it's not a huge idea. You know, sometimes you hear people have like they have that one huge idea and they run with it. But I love the story of like, you know, like dabbling, like experimenting, and it just sort of comes naturally of like, wow, this is kind of working and happening. And I think so often that it's a huge thing because there's no pressure. It's like when you have that big idea and someone's like, yeah, I want to give you money. Like, you know, we've never been in that position, but I can imagine it's like, like there's a lot of pressure. I got to figure this out, versus when you do it organically, like there's just something really cool to hear stories like that for you guys, where it's just organic and there's not a huge pressure of like, it has to be figured out. So I love to hear that. And I'd love to hear when it works out. It's like just super cool.
Yeah, it's been great. We've loved it.
Yeah. But I want to get into this because this is just super cool. And I think there's so many other, you know, the majority of the people that listen to this podcast are other entrepreneurs and business owners. And I think a lot of them might not be aware of Turo. Like I certainly wasn't a year ago. Maybe, you know, I think people are, I would say from what I've talked to my other small business owner friends, Airbnb arbitrage is pretty well known. But Turo in the car world is a whole different ballgame. I'd love, Kelly, if you could just start out maybe with like, what is Turo and like, what's the potential benefit of it? Like for somebody who's like, what are they talking about? What is this term?
Turo. Turo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's great. It's a car sharing platform. It's basically like a rental car company, but you're sharing with like a local owner of that vehicle. And
Yeah.
so you can put your own personal car up or a car dedicated specifically to Turo up there, and then you set your own prices with a little bit of boundary there. Turo sets some boundaries on that, but you set your own prices and people rent it. And so you can minimum day of like a 1 day rental up to like, I don't know, 30 plus days. It's kind of like unlimited in that regard. And it's great. It's a great opportunity to put, just like you said earlier, to put your own car up. If you're like, well, I don't use this as often as I want, or maybe like you're going to be on a long vacation or something. You're like, let's just like see if I can get like five-day booking out of it or something.
Yeah.
Like it's a great opportunity for people who want that, especially like what I said earlier about Alaskans, like they have their summer car and they have their winter car sometimes. And so, or they have just cars sitting on their lot. I don't know what it is. I forget what the stat was. It was like every Alaskan has like 4 to 6 cars, like per family or something. It's something like insane, like not actually that they need them, but they just kind of sit up here because you don't move them out. And so you just kind of have a few.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot harder to get them out than, like if you're in Tennessee, you can go to, a state, you can drive it to the state.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
to get to like,
Yes.
it's a trek to go get one from there. If you're not,
Yes.
even within Alaska, which is huge, like
For sure. Oh, it's a big deal. Yeah.
So how did you guys first hear about Turo or find out about this as an opportunity?
Yeah. So when we went to Hawaii on vacation in 2018, and for whatever reason, my husband came across it online. He was like,
Yeah.
we were at the time not 25 yet. And so that was a big deal to try to get a rental car from a big company. It was like going to be real expensive to try to get like the whatever under 25 rate.
Why is that so? That seems just so silly to me. Like of all the
It
things,
is.
renting a
It
car, you have
is.
to wait till you're 25.
It
Like
is.
I think it's a tangent.
Yes.
Just like it hit me
Yes.
like that's just so silly.
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't have credit cards. So we've never had them.
Yeah.
And we got out of debt early on in our marriage. And we were like, by the time we were going to Hawaii in 2018, we were out of debt. And we were just like, we're not going to open a credit card just to get a rental car.
Yeah.
So he looked into it and he didn't want to pay enormous amount for, like a normal company to get the under 25 rate. And so we found Turo and it was a great rate. And we actually rented 2 different cars on the platform that time. I think we got like a really cheap, whatever, small SUV. And then we got this nice new BMW for the last few days or something. And it was great. It was great. It was a good time. And it worked out. Like, I don't know how he came upon it. He does a lot of research. He loves YouTube. So it was probably on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was probably from there. And then from there, when we kept hearing about it and we were like, oh, people are doing it here, like in Alaska, because they're always short on cars in the summer, just with how much tourism is. And it's not worth it to bring enough cars for that and just let them sit in the winter. So you just got to kind of balance that. But we've loved it ever since. We were like, let's get into that.
That's so cool. I love how it's just like, you facing a problem, right? Which is, hey, I'm not 25 yet. And we don't have to go get a credit card. Like, I just think sometimes in life, it's like mindset can be, well, yes, we'll have to walk. I don't know, like we'll have to Uber or whatever, but it's like, hey, well, let me do some research. Let me go figure this out. Thank goodness the internet exists. Like you can look stuff up and figure that out, which is super cool. And I'd love to ask, so you mentioned that, and this is just a sidebar, maybe it'll come up with a different question, but you said you could do your personal car or you could do a car dedicated to the Turo platform. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
How does that
work? I mean, whatever it is that's in your name, or for us, it's just in our business name. Okay. And we just have cars specifically for Turo. We just have them on an open schedule indefinitely, I guess, for now. Yeah. So if you put your personal car, you could like block off like when you would need your car. Like maybe it's like you don't want to rent it out anytime on a Monday or something. Like you need it every Monday or whatever. So
that's kind of cool. So there's 2 ways of looking. I guess I've only thought about just your personal vehicle, like the one that you use, and like think of it like you own your, and it makes sense now, but like your Airbnb, your own place out when you're gone, that makes sense to me. And then Airbnb, like you could just buy a rental property and turn it into an Airbnb. That's another way.
Exactly.
I hadn't thought about that in the car space. So do you buy the vehicle under your business name and then essentially it's just an asset that you're renting out?
Correct. Yep. So we do that. We'll buy a car and then we just put it under our business name. There's a little more fees with that, just like with
Sure.
how I guess Alaska specifically does it, but it's like a commercial vehicle and then, or whatever it's rated under there.
Yeah.
And then you just put the title under there and then we just rent it out on Turo. There's like limitations. I think Turo used to offer where an actual like not Hertz or per se, but like a local company who was just doing it small could post their stuff on Turo and not have any liability on Turo. Now that's not an option. You have to do like at least a 90% plan where you get 90% of the revenue, or I think it's like 80 or 85 and then 75, 60% of like whatever you get the rental rate was, then you get that percentage. And the rest goes towards like the platform and making sure like the insurance is covered for them and us.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, I got to ask then. So first off, that's really exciting because I literally only thought about it from a personal vehicle standpoint versus a business. I mean, you could start like you guys are doing an actual business that's, running through that. Did you guys start that way, or did you start with a personal vehicle to just like try out? We
started just business. We thought about doing a car that we had, and there's limitations. So you have to have a car that's 12 years or newer. So it's 2023. So you'd have to get a 2000, what is that? 11, 2011, or newer car and put it on. Now it grandfathers in. So if like you have a 2011 this year, you can still put it on, leave it on the platform. And then I think it's 130,000 miles or less originally when you put it on, and then, it can grandfather and past that. There are limitations on the insurance. So that's like the fine balance of putting your personal car on or a solely Turo car, like solely car for Turo. You have to really watch who your car loans through. There's definitely liability there. A lot of car loans won't allow you to put on Turo. They're not like for that. Some of them are changing in that regard, but you got to just like watch whatever place you're going through. And then the insurance too. So if you were to like put it on your personal insurance and then have it on Turo and they find out and that's not in your agreement, and that can kind of get, so people have done both. People have done it and just kind of like, well, we'll take the risk. But for us, like we would just, I mean, if we were considering putting a personal vehicle on and we were like, we'll just get another plan like for that car. We're not going to risk it because we have USAA and they've been great for our car insurance. We're like, we're not risking to lose that. So for future cars, but we have our own insurance right now through a different company that allows like car sharing platforms. And then we're thinking about switching over to CarSync. CarSync.io is a great platform to start in your area. You do have to already have a Turo account, but that doesn't mean you have to have a car on the platform. But you just set up a Turo account and then you can log into that website and they give you so much information. It's amazing. You can see how many cars are being utilized in your area. You can like change the area however big you want it. And then so utilization rate, how many cars are on the platform in your area, what type of cars are in your area. Like I think the number one brand is like Toyota in our area, not shocking. And then I forget what the next few. Subaru is also up there, not shocking as well. And then they also do it like by car type. So Toyota Sienna is number one in our area for like just specific type of car. And then they'll show you like years, how many people have cars of like 2023s all the way down to like 2011s or even later if they've been here for a while. So that's a great, if you're going to consider starting Turo, definitely start there. CarSync.io, amazing platform. It's free right now. So definitely like check it out.
Cool. So obviously get a Turo account and then go to CarSync.io.
Yep. You don't even have to have a car listed. You just have to have a Turo account. So it's great.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure to put those in the show notes. I'm going to check that out as well. I would love to just kind of ask, I think, I think there's a natural, probably was when it was Airbnb first starting too, of like, oh my gosh, what are the cons of this? Like, are people going to destroy my house? Right. Like, did you guys have any hesitations starting this? I mean, there's a little like, and then have any of those things ever come to fruition, or have you had pretty much only positive experiences? Super curious.
In general, like 85%, 90% of the time, amazing experiences. We get a lot of first-time Turo users. I don't know if that's just per our area or just in general as Turo's like name is getting out there, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was also because of our area. Just for like, you look at Hertz right now, Hertz for a sedan is $788 a day to rent a sedan, like to rent the smallest sedan possible in our area.
Wait,
Now,
$788 a day?
a day. That's not an
Oh,
accurate representation of what it actually costs. That was not what their prices were last year. But last year they got their cars swamped and like booked all out too far in advance. And so naturally, I think they're like going against that now a little bit.
yeah.
And so I didn't even look at the SUVs. I was like, I don't want to see that price tag on that. That's disgusting. And our cheapest sedan right now is like just over 100 for those same dates. July is our number one month for tourism, just in Alaska in general. And so not surprising because it's the best weather and it's the warmest. It can get up to 90 degrees. It's pretty impressive. It gets kind of hot. Yeah. Like other days are like 70, but same. And so that was critical. That was, we couldn't believe like that when we first saw it. We were like, what, that much in July? We're like, and we have our cars for like 100 something, come right through us. I don't think I answered your question at all.
No, sorry. You're good. So just curious, like the essentially like pros and cons here. Like, so pros are like competition wise, obviously, except from what it sounds like, hey, compared to where traditional places people might look like, during times where it's peak craziness right now, $788 a day just sounds bananas to rent any kind of car.
Pros, like you can get a lot more renters. And I mean, with any business, do you want to go after the people that you're probably like your way of marketing is I'm the cheapest? I don't know, because you don't always want that. You don't want to be known as the cheapest, but like there's a balance there of like I'm at least more reasonable. Like I don't know about that price tag. And we're not the cheapest on Turo either. And we still get a fair amount of customers. So the pros being there's so much opportunity there on like winning back some time and you sending out a car that what's the cheapest car we bought? I think it was like just over $8,000 and it's already paid for itself. It paid for itself well under 12 months. It's our Mazda 3 that we got last May. And so we just got a Hyundai Elantra. In December, and that was also closer to 9, but it was just over 8. And so you can get like a cheaper sedan like that and pay it off like within 12 months, if not less, depending on like the prices in your area. And it's been great. Like you can pay that off, get ROI past the wazoo out beyond that and profit and just sit there. And like, it's not too hard of business. You're not turning that car over every day. Now, if you are, maybe you need to change your schedule or like change the schedule on Turo. But in general, like we have a 5-day minimum for all of our cars, especially in the winter, because we don't want to be turning over cars every few days in this cold weather. And so that's been great. So you can make your own schedule and that's been phenomenal. We have our own cleaner. We pay a friend of ours to clean our cars. And so we don't really have to go out there. That's been great because I have 2 kids. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And my husband does step in my husband does step in from time to time. The cons being, of course, like you're gonna get poor customers. I think the worst customers we've had have been like twice. And they've smoked in the car, really left a lot of trash and just kind of like destroyed the car. But to be honest, like we have like an ozone machine that we bought for this reason, but you can get the canisters of ozone stuff and you just set it in the cup, like you set it up, however it says to do it on the can, you set it up, leave it there for a few hours. Don't breathe in the ozone stuff. That's not good for you. And so you leave the door shut and then you eventually come back to it and you open, like let it air out for a little bit and then it's fine. And that hasn't been too big of a deal. I think we just knew that going into it, like people aren't going to treat this car like it's my car. Like, so that's the one thing about putting your personal vehicle on. If you're super attached to it, I hesitate to put it on there just because like if somebody just is like, they're no big deal. Maybe they put a kid in when they shouldn't have, or you wouldn't have. They can get marks on everything, scratch it up. You're like, oh no. But Turo will back you up if it's if it's damage over 3 inches, like they'll have them cover it if you can get them to do that, depending on your like 90% down to 60% plan. And then you typically just deal direct with the customer in that regard. Like, let's cut out insurance. That'll cost us more. So like, if we can deal with this directly, that's typically what we've had. The worst that we've had, it's kind of funny. It's our nicest vehicle or most expensive. I think it was just over 37,000. And it's definitely got the most damage. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the size of the car. It's a Sequoia.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe like they're not used to driving something that big. I don't know, but it's always this back, like the bumper always gets dinged, but never in like a massive accident yet. I should say that. And or the smoked in and stuff. I think that's the only one that's been smoked in, but we get the scent out, like eventually it goes away. So it's honestly, the pros outweigh the cons for us. As long as like, if that gives you anxiety, like don't do it. Like if it's going to cause you too much problem and you don't have any time capacity, don't step in. But for the most part, it's pretty easy and they're pretty supportive. If you find evidence of smoking, Turo will back you up. They'll give you they'll charge them a smoking fee and give it to you. And then that's been great. We haven't really had any problems with any major damage that we've been like, they're not even helping us. Right. I guess the only major risk is getting in a car accident, and we haven't had one, like a major one that causes the car to be out. We haven't had that yet. And we haven't really been like, I don't know, affected by that in that regard. But I mean, we're prepared. Like if your car goes out, then the people who are behind on the schedule, like they're kind of out of luck unless you have another car to offer them. Then you can switch them over. But the pros have been great. It's been great.
Well, I'm gonna knock on wood for you guys for the no accident or anything. And
yes, that's for sure.
I think it's really just good to hear from somebody who's doing it. And not just like, hey, I had one, I rented one car and it's been good. You've got 6 cars out there and overall incredibly positive experience, which I think of Airbnb now. I think back to the first few years I used Airbnb, it was still like, it shows how old I am, but they were like, people were like, is this safe? Is this, and now people are commonplace. I look at Airbnb before I look at hotels for most.
Yes, agreed. That's like, what we do.
So I'm super curious if, Kelly, just from so obviously pros and cons. Pros are obviously far outweighing the cons. Otherwise you guys wouldn't be continuing to do this.
Correct. super
curious for you guys with if you're cool, because a lot of people who are watching this are business owners and they love kind of the nitty gritty stuff. Are you, for you guys, do you have a philosophy on how you've been doing this? Is it, hey, save up enough to buy the car in full, pay it down for a year, and then it cash flows after like a year, and then save money from that, buy the next vehicle? Are you buying the cars on a loan and then being able, I know you're talking about it's a little more difficult to do that. Just curious, like I don't want to give away all your secrets, but just like the general sort of like business model that you guys operate under.
Yeah. So we've been out of debt since 2017, maybe early 2018, and we don't want to go back. So we've just been paying cash for all the cars. Our first car was a Highlander. I think it was just under 20,000. And so we had saved up for that. We had that set aside as an investment specifically for this. And so we put it in that car, and then it started cash flowing. We're like, wow, this is pretty awesome. We should get another. And we did have some cash set aside. That's when we got our most expensive car, our Sequoia. And we do have 2 Sequoias, I should add, but one of them's drastically, it's newer. It's a few years newer than the other. So it's a little bit more expensive. And so we've just been cash flowing. A lot of it's been our personal investment. And then now our goal is just to cash flow just from the income that Turo gives us. And so right now we're hoping, we have 6 cars right now. We're hoping to get to 10 cars by the end of the year, but hoping to get like 2, maybe 3 before summer. That would be great. At least
do you guys pay for all those in full? And you pay for all those in full?
They're paid all in full. Just cash. Oh, that's been the best thing for us, because a lot of the times we get them from private parties. There's been one, I think there's only been the most expensive one that we got from an actual dealer, and everything else has been from private party, which is also great. If you want to start Turo, I would highly suggest getting into That's the small sedans. It doesn't even have to be your personal car, but it could be your personal car, and the cheaper, the better. And that's great. Like if it meets all the basic requirements, like you can cash flow. We cash flow about, on average, about $1,000 a month from that. And that's revenue. And then there's a little bit of expense there that's dependent on if you clean your car, if you park it somewhere. We park it at an airport lot and we just leave them there and wait for the next guest to get them. So there's a little bit more expense there, but on average it's typically close to, if not over, $1,000 profit at that point, per car per month, which is awesome. And ours ebbs and flows. In the summer, that's our major, like way up there.
Yeah.
October is our worst month. That tends to be the worst to travel in general.
It's like any seasonal business, you prepare
for sure,
like what's gonna, like
for sure.
And the cool thing is you have it as an asset. If it was ever like dire straits, you can still get something from it. And I mean, not that you can count on like the car going up in value, which was crazy the past couple of years. The car value is going up. I was like, how do we have this car and it's worth more now? Like that doesn't even make sense. But other than that, like it will depreciate, but it's paid for itself at that point in our mind. And even if you did get a car loan, and mind you, like making sure everything is good with the car place that you're getting, the car loan that you're getting from, I think what's the average right now? It's like closer to like $700 a month. I mean, if you're making like $1,000 a month, that's still like $200 to $300 in your pocket. If you're cleaning it yourself, I mean, maybe a little bit closer to $300. So it's a big deal. Ours in Alaska, having it ebb and flow as much as it does, it's still pretty consistent in the winter. In the lower 48, I've seen in general from a few people we follow on Instagram and YouTube, they typically have way higher utilization year round, but they don't get nearly as much per day as we do in like, especially like the summer. Summer's insane. I think one of our Sequoias rented for like $349 a day for 14 days. Like it was insane. It was crazy. And that's just what we price it at, let alone what Turo adds like a couple fees on top of that. So, and that was a good deal compared to like Hertz and Enterprise. So it was crazy. And they booked it out like in February. So it was pretty awesome. And there's so, I mean, I think there's a vast array of like, I've seen people do exotic cars all the way down to like, what's her name? Oh man, I can't remember her name, but she got us interested in from YouTube. I'll have to send you her name later. Maybe you can tag her later. But she's great. She's a great resource too. I think she has a course too. We haven't taken it, but she does. They're like Yaris's, and there's a couple other cars that she gets like them old and like the smallest car possible, like and compact, she makes she has like 20 something cars now. So they do a great job. But so there's lots of opportunity. You don't have to get the cheapest car. You could also get like a personal car that you might actually want to drive every now and then, or maybe I've heard of people doing a lot of like their travel, like long distance travel cars that they'll like, I'll only do it for road trips. That's not necessarily the case in Alaska, but lower 48, and they'll get a big family car that they only use for big long distance travel, and they put that on Turo while it's sitting there. While their city car is like they're using every day. That's so cool. Oh my God. Well, Kelly, you've totally opened my mind to like I got to go continue my research now on Turo, which ultimately I'm really curious from the business side of stuff. Like I know you mentioned getting up to 10 cars by the end of the year. Do you guys have, or do you or you guys in general have a vision of where you maybe want this to go in a couple of years? Is it like, hey, just keep expanding the fleet? Is it like, hey, once we hit a certain, maybe profit per month kind of number, we're probably good? Like any thoughts, or just open to, hey, wherever it goes?
Both. But we're mostly right now, like the goal of like having 10 cars this year is just to like, we see the numbers adding up, and then that will maybe instrument trying to like buy a property or rent a property or something for Airbnb. We would love to do Airbnb too. But like really expand the travel in general, our travel business, trying to offer itineraries, Airbnb, the rental car, like just all encompassing. And that would be awesome. I think that's our ultimate goal. And then just like really expanding that. So right now it's like 10, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we like leave it like, like start plateauing and just leave it. And so as we like stack up cash and put it into like an Airbnb or something, I don't know. We'll see from there. But that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Any like thoughts on teaching other people how to start their own Turo setups, or maybe?
Yeah, we've talked about it. So we've been wanting, so my husband has talked about doing something for like Amazon. He's like, man, I don't really want to do that. But we've talked about doing something for Turo, or just in general, like how to go from like a 9 to 5, especially with my husband being from the military. Like, how do you do that? And all of a sudden jump into full time. That's a big jump. That was super stressful. We had a lot of people, not a lot. There was a lot of supportive people. And then there was a lot of not supportive people who were like, oh, okay, good luck with that. And I was like, basically questioning if we could even put food on the table when we left the army. And that was really hurtful. That's really hard to go through that. And so we don't want that for other people. We want to say, like, you can do this. Like, you can do this. Just set up a basic plan. It does not have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be thorough, but let's have some basic plans, some basic numbers drawn out. Like, this is how much I need every month to put food on the table, to pay my water bill, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be the ultimate goal. But if people are interested, maybe we'll put something out. I don't know.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, man, I'm super excited. I think it's one of those things where, there are plenty of Airbnb arbitrage, like, short courses or coaching programs where it's super helpful. And I just, I think, man, there'd be a whole group. And which, speaking of that, how I'd love to wrap this up is, if you're listening to this, you have to go check out the EntrepreNAGEL podcast. I'm going to put links to it on here, but that's where I was learning about some of the details. Was I listened to a couple of your episodes. You guys are really transparent about the numbers too, like the stuff that if you're a business owner, and especially if you're listening to this podcast, particularly, you probably like financial stuff and all that stuff. Like Kelly and her, her husband, I think it's Josiah. Is that right?
Yes, it's Josiah. You're right.
Josiah dive into like actual nitty gritty stuff. So have to check that out. Kelly, if people want to connect with you, or if somebody's listening and has questions about Turo, or like wants to get in that, what are the best ways for people to reach out to you guys or follow you guys? Where do you want to put them to?
Yeah. So if you want to check out any of our travel stuff for Alaska, it's Travel the Last Frontier. That's for YouTube, Instagram. You can even check out our website, travellastfrontier.com. And then you can check me out on Instagram, jellybagel_AK. It's just a play on my name, Kelly Nagel. And then my husband is Bacon Bagel. He had to just one up me with the bacon, so.
But bacon and jelly together, even better. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I'll put links to in the show notes to all of those, to the travel website, to your travel accounts, as well as to your personal Instagrams. And then obviously, you guys go check out the EntrepreNAGEL podcast. Like and there's a YouTube channel as well. The banter alone between Kelly and Josiah is hilarious. Just the like intro part of whatever episode, I can't remember what the title was, but like, is the first 6 minutes was just solid back and forth about, like, I think it was about oh my gosh, what's the word? It's like you guys were arguing about a bear versus a dragon or something, and like the dragon being better. I was like, oh man, this is what I'm here for. This is great. Like, I love it.
Would you rather? Yeah. Those are good. He's always so funny like that. That's how he operates. And then he was claiming he wasn't an entrepreneur. And I was like, that's not true. You problem solve, man. Like, you're like, no, this is it. And like, we're going to go down this rabbit trail of just what can we do with this? I'm like, okay.
Oh man. Well, guys, go check it out. Kelly, I can't say thank you enough for being willing to do this.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate you having me on. It's been great.
My pleasure. And guys, obviously, if you like this, please like, subscribe, share the show if you can, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Building Better Business.